The ruined castle you see behind me is the birthplace of a once and future King of Britons. What am I talking about? Well, I'm down on the north coast of Cornwall, and what you see behind me is commonly known as King Arthur's castle. But did King Arthur really exist? Or is that all just a myth? Well, I'm going to take a look around to see what this town has got to offer and try to get to the bottom of the Arthur story. Naturally, I'll share the best of what I find with you. The best coastal views, the best quaint buildings and shops, and most importantly, the best of King Arthur. A gallant, chivalrous, honest leader of our nation. If he ever existed, that is. Now, as we walked down through the village, we found it full of the usual interesting little shops you get in these places. I really liked these goblets. Very Arthurian. The thing that really struck me though was the smell of pasty that seemed ever present wherever we went. So it was hardly surprising that eventually we gave in. It was looking like rain, so we didn't want to risk a takeaway. So just at the bottom of the hill, opposite the castle car park, was this place. Now, it takes confidence to claim to be the pasty place in somewhere like this, so we felt reasonably confident that we'd get a decent one, and we wasn't disappointed. The pastry was perfect texture, soft yet firm, and the filling tasted lovely. Not your ordinary pasty, that's for sure. Now, school history lessons teach us all about the kings and queens of our nation, and all the major wars and battles that our ancestors fought in. Yet the name of King Arthur doesn't get mentioned in any classroom anywhere in the country, which tends to suggest he probably never existed. But not necessarily. Let me explain. Around the start of the 5th century, the Roman Empire was falling apart, and the then Emperor Honorius, made the decision to call all his legions from Britain back to Rome, completely leaving Britain to look after itself again. Now, after 400 years of Roman rule, that would have come as a bit of a shock to the Britons, and what seems to have happened is the country fragmented into different regions, all with their own leaders claiming control. It's likely that most of the scribes that recorded all the events that make up our understanding of history also returned to Rome with the soldiers. And that led to a period of a few hundred years where the only records of history were the oral retelling of stories of old. This is the period that historians call the Dark Ages. They call it that because even today they know so little about what actually happened. History was literally in the dark. So who's to say then that in that period of a few hundred years there wasn't a famous king of Britons named Arthur? Now, I should point out that the castle we look at today are the remains of the castle that was built in the 13th century by Richard, the 1st Earl of Cornwall, so it can't be the same building that King Arthur was actually born in. But apparently there was a castle here previously, so don't despair, the legend still has legs yet. Now, there are written accounts of Arthur by so-called historians, like Geoffrey of Monmouth in his book The History of the Kings and Queens of Britain, as well as Chrétien de Troyes, if I've said that right, Sir Thomas Malory, and others. However, I should point out that these accounts are all written many hundreds of years after he was said to have lived, so should all be taken with a large pinch of salt. Although these accounts differ, the general picture of his life is that of a leader who came to prominence by uniting the various tribes to defend, if not all of Britain, then at least the western side, in other words Wales and the West Country, against the incoming Saxon invaders from the east. It's said that he led his armies to victories in 10 epic battles before finally dying. although it was believed by many, especially in Wales, that he would one day return in times of trouble to save the nation again. The story of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table has been told so many times. Disney told it, Hollywood told it repeatedly, and even Monty Python told the Arthurian story in its own inimitable way, with classic lines like, "'Tis a mere scratch," "We are the knights that say knee," and who can forget the deadly Killer Bunny? Of course, it's not surprising that all of these drew from the more romanticised storyline, which starts with the sword in the stone and the legend that only the true heir to the throne could pull it out. After building an alliance with leaders from around the country, otherwise known as the Knights of the Round Table, he would go on to win the 10 epic battles I spoke of earlier. That's when the story turns sour though. Firstly, his most trusted knight, Sir Lancelot, runs off with his wife, Guinevere. Then finally, he's slain in battle by none other than his own illegitimate son, with his dying body being taken to the mythical island of Avalon to rest in peace. And there he is, the legend himself, standing there in all his glory. Here's what I think. Jesus turned water into wine and Moses parted the Red Sea. More than half the people on this planet's faith is reliant on those unarguable truths. So if I want to believe in the Lady of the Lake and a boy born to be king who can pull a sword out of a stone, then I will. I'll be honest though, I'm still struggling with the idea of a rabbit with sharp fangy teeth.